are these people?
What's up, everybody? There's another episode of INN News with me, Reef Breland, my lovely co-host, Care Bear, aka Collin, and below us, the lovely special guest, Savvy Sabs. How's everyone?
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me on.
You're very
Thank
welcome.
you for being on. Finally get to have you. We've been talking about this for a few weeks at least, but yeah, we're so happy that you're here, joining us for the first time actually. So welcome to our little community here. So just to be very transparent, you are crunched for time. So I think we should kind of get started. And then as we said to you off camera, when you need to dip, and we'll take over for the rest of the show. But again, we're glad you're here.
At STFU shitlib2 on Twitter, aka Joe. You might see his stuff around. Member of INN, does some pretty great stuff on there. One of the best editors. I mean, Orf's having a lot of competition now with him. So, but you know, I decided to like cover some of his stuff. Since I saw CJ posting, retweeting, I guess, the video. So I figured I'd make it a little segment since Joe's done a few of these. But I think, Savvy, you've probably seen at least one of these, so you know, whatever. But we'll watch it and see what people think. So, action. I should probably have sound.
Don't resist, bro. I'm not.
What a coward. What a fucking snowflake little bitch that guy is.
Go fuck yourself.
Of course he's a bully coward. Of course, two types of people become cops. Bullies and people who were bullied.
The police started off as slave patrols. That's where the police have derived from. And they still are slave patrols because the U.S. prison system has legalized slavery.
You terrorize their neighborhoods, you fucking maniac. You piece of shit. Snowflake. You terrorize those fucking black kids. That's why they say that. Because you're a terrorist, you fucking coward cop.
The police are here for nothing more than to protect assets, to protect property, and to protect rich and powerful people.
And that's why people want to defund your whole fucking profession, because you guys are such mania. You're like the Taliban. You're like ISIS occupying our fucking cities. Get the fuck out.
I can tell you, right here in D.C., we have 40 plus police departments. So D.C. should be the safest city in the world, right? We should have no crime. Nothing. But yet, D.C. has a very high crime rate. It's almost like the police don't help crime. They don't solve crime. They don't prevent crime. They just show up after shit is over.
Cops are not angry! I'm telling you! Everyone likes us! Very pleasant interactions! You don't think you had a pleasant interaction? You didn't fucking have one?
So, black people's experience with the police and white people's experience with the police are very different. The ways in which the black people are, like the ways in which the police interact with black people versus how they interact with white people is very different.
Who wants some of this fucking pleasant policing? I'll give it to you. You want some of this pleasant policing? I got some more. I got buckets full, and all of these fucking guys got it for you too.
It's just truly unfair that people that have no experience with police brutality get to write the policy for people that are suffering.
I am not going to vote for a party that is justifying shit like this. And then the easiest thing that they say they're going to do is, oh, we just need to reform the problem. You can't reform this shit.
73% of white people have absolutely no contact with the police throughout the year. 73%.
But if you have a badge and a gun and you kill a black man, you get a paid vacation. You get rewarded for your brutality, your oppression, your racism, your disdain and contempt for the lives of others because they have a different pigment in their skin.
If we want safer communities everywhere, we need to invest in communities everywhere.
It's not just a few bad apples, all right? I counted 6 bad apples choking Eric Gardner.
And then on top of that, no empathy, right? You know, people talk about it's justified. Fuck you, it's justified.
I counted 4 bad apples choking George Floyd.
Right.
Thinking that you can reform a rotten fascistic part of the system is pointless. And if we know that the changes we want will not occur, what now?
I counted 3 bad apples murdering Breonna Taylor in his sleep. I counted 3 bad apples murdering Ahmaud Arbery. I counted 2 bad apples murdering Rashard Brooks.
Now you're fleeing, so somehow that's a threat to me and I need to kill you for it is just fucking beyond me. But that's what people just have accepted now. People go, well, you shouldn't have tried to run. Like fuck you. That is not a death sentence.
You gonna come and tell me it's a few bad apples? It's a whole damn orchard, man.
The cities with the highest police budgets in America also have some of the highest crime rates. I wonder why that is.
They don't need any more fucking money. They're militarized as fuck already. What good is that helping the community?
We are the ones that are gonna get murdered more. We're the ones that are gonna end up in jails more.
I think we need to be done with this shit. It's such bullshit. We aren't gonna be able to do anything if everyone stays asleep. That's what pisses me off so much.
You know what that means when somebody says that? That means to them, they don't care about black lives. They're telling you directly to your face, oh, it's just a few bad apples. I need to see more black people being killed before I give a shit. That's what they're saying. Because the value of a black man or a black person in America does not register with them. You know, 1 out of every 1,000 black men in America gets killed by police.
And I pose this question: conservatives have not received an answer yet. I know you guys see my tweets. I asked you guys if you really believe in gun rights, why is it justified for a cop to shoot someone just because they have a gun? Over and over again, they use the fact that, oh, he had a gun, so we will justify in shooting him. So my question to the right wing, this is to show how you guys are hypocrites on this issue: do you believe in gun rights or not? Because if you believe in gun rights, that is not a justification for them to shoot them.
After all the protests, all the outcry, they haven't learned a thing. The pigs, the politicians didn't get the message. So you got to turn up the heat.
Abby, your thoughts?
I mean, it's very true. And it's a problem that we see in a lot of communities. I think that there was a point there that Jesse brought up about someone running away, about someone fleeing. And if someone is running away from the police, they are no longer considered to be a threat. And I think that's important for people to understand. They're not running towards the cops, they're running away from them. And in reference to police funding, same thing. I agree with what Afeni said, is that the cities, some of the cities that have the largest police budgets have high crime rates. So you have to ask yourself, what is really happening there? I mean, I know Nick and I have talked about this before, that police solve 0.02% of crime.
Yeah.
So what are police officers doing with all that time that they have throughout the day? A lot of times I've seen them targeting people and harassing people in Black neighborhoods, particularly, like, I'm speaking of Baltimore because that's where my family is from. So I've seen police officers come into the inner city. A lot of times they don't live in the neighborhood. They don't know the people. They don't know the community, and they come in there harassing people. And mainly part of it is because they have quotas that they're supposed to reach. There was a gentleman, he's a former police officer. He was on Joe Rogan's show. I can never remember this guy's name. I think it's Michael something.
Yeah.
But
the guy who does like community police like boards, right? Used to.
Yeah. Yes. Michael revealed that when he was a Baltimore police officer, that they used to tell them certain like blocks to patrol and to come back with something. And the gentleman who was filming him for the documentary said, but one would think that you would need to actually commit a crime to charge someone with the crime and to bring them in. And he said, that's what you would think, but that's not necessarily true. So he talked about how police officers were planting drugs on people, planting weapons on people. Baltimore police are one of the most corrupt police forces in the United States. So he talked about that, you know, and I think that people really need to understand that when I say defund the police, what you have to know is that they only solve 0.02% of crime. So defunding them that's not really going to change that. We've been giving them more and more money for years, and they're still not really solving more crimes. So people have to make that connection.
Well, and I mean, Afeni talked about DC being one of the most policed things. Collin, being from DC, can attest. Definitely still crime in one of the highest policed, you know, areas of the country that the squad votes to put more in. So, you know,
and something that I think about a lot, and Savvy, I think you brought this up in a stream maybe a few weeks ago. It's the idea of like, and I'm going to be very careful about what I say, because there are obviously a lot of cultural issues that become like the hot topics right now that, you know, not to say that they shouldn't get any attention, they do, but I just feel a certain way that the people who are making the lead on these issues and kind of talking about it and almost kind of canceling people if they do certain actions towards, you know, discrimination against certain groups, it's almost kind of like taking precedence over our issue, Black people's issues, especially regarding the police. You know, I think about George Floyd, and I was in the midst of it back in 2020, and I witnessed, you know, the abuse that the cops were putting towards the protesters firsthand. Like, and the fact that now, like, we still haven't gotten any justice for George Floyd. We still haven't gotten any, you know, legislation to protect Black people from the police after George Floyd. And especially with the bigger channels, they've kind of moved on, you know, but as Sabby says, you know, like for me, you know, like, yeah, like Biden is not necessarily an issue that I have to deal with every day. I have to deal with the cops. And I think I shared the story before, like this is actually in Boston when I lived there. I was waiting at the subway getting home, and a cop presses up on me because apparently I, quote unquote, fit the description of a robbery that happened within, I think, a block or so away. And I remember being like, I don't know what he's going to do to, and he was a lot bigger. He had to be about 6'5", white cop. And he was kind of coming at me. It's like, where were you? And like, I literally feared for my life. And if it wasn't for a drunk white woman across the other platform who basically was saying, you know, he's been here for the last however long, he's been not like, he's no, like he had nothing to do with that. You know, I don't know what that cop would have done. But I remember, you know, as soon as the train hit the platform, I got on and I basically ran home in tears. And I had never had an issue with the cops before prior to that, but that's something I do think about all the time. And that's something that I'm more wary of in terms of, you know, I'm afraid that can happen to me again, essentially, because of my skin color. And the fact that people are not taking, not everybody, but certain people don't take that issue seriously enough, especially where we're kind of making these statements of defunding the police, like we're looking for abolition, then, you know, the fact that people are not talking about it or are just kind of dismissing it is very upsetting. But yet Speaking you want us to kind of follow up with the issues that you care about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking
this is
of
how
abolition,
it always works.
Do either of you know where police forces originate from? Because many of you talked about it. Go ahead.
I've said, from what I've researched, slave patrols.
Mm-hmm.
But when I talked about this with Adolph Reed, he told me that's actually not true. That's a myth. And I was like, no.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with very possibly maybe. But anyway, here's another video to enlighten people. Roll the tape.
I don't hear anything.
Violently assaulting a woman. That's a 300-pound, muscled-up, steroided, fucking thumb-dicked cocksucker violently assaulting a woman.
All of them, the political class, the oligarchs, the cops, the judiciary, they are begging you to burn this bitch down.
That guy, that's him. And he's got a torture collar on his dog. This guy's fucking fucked up, and he's a cop. This guy's fucked up, and he's a cop.
Come on, bro. Come on. Let's be real about here, okay?
Do they have a psychological exam? Yes. And if you're fucked up, they let you in. By the way, if you're too smart or show compassion, they get rid of you. They like obedient maniacs who are hopped up on steroids, who like to torture people. That's who fucking cops are.
It's time to wake up. Come on, get up.
Like the topic today, which is American policing and, you know, their roots and origins in slave patrol, slave catching. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So
after the Civil War, the 13th Amendment to the Constitution abolished slavery except as a punishment for a crime.
The South immediately moves to exploit this loophole by passing a series of crime bills known as Black Codes.
Some of the first police forces in the South were created to control enslaved Black people. They would come to be known as slave patrols.
All white people, including white children, were expected to enforce so-called slave codes.
And you want me to watch my tone? Motherfucker, I can't be angry enough. I'm not angry enough, nowhere near angry enough.
Fighting against slavery or fighting against slave catching. Then it's to protect property. Then it's to squash workers' movement. They're literally talking about that. It's those three things that the invention or what's interwoven into the DNA of the police from its inception.
You enslaving and oppressing people for hundreds of fucking years, and then you wonder why they're angry?
Bro, we imprison 1/4 of the world's prison population. The American police kill 3 people per day. Name it. We're the other country that has civil asset forfeiture, redlining, broken windows policing.
This practice of convict leasing earned enormous revenues for the states who lent out their prisoners, and huge profits for the companies using this prison labor.
If you're siding with the cops, brutalizing people, you're a bootlicker.
Slavery was not outlawed, bro. You tell me this doesn't look just like slavery? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Is that what you're trying to look at? I mean, just look at this. Like, all you did was say slavery's over, and then you round up all the same slaves, put them in prison, and then rent them out to people to do the same work.
Yeah, you damn fucking right I'm angry. I'm not angry enough, motherfucker. The question isn't why am I angry and why am I cussing. The question is why the fuck are you not angry? Where is your empathy? Where is your fucking brain cells? Where is your common decency? Where's your compassion? What is wrong with you that you are not angry? How could you look at this shit and not be angry?
Come on, bro. Come on. Let's be real about here, okay?
Go beat your wives more, because that's what cops do. Oh, by the way, the profession with the most wives beaters? Cops, of course!
So, go ahead and Google the bonus army after World War I.
I need respect. I want you to respect us. It's not how the people want it, but that's how I want it. And I'm a cop.
That's my money. That's your money. Whoever the fuck pays taxes, right? I want to see where my money goes, and I want it to go into my community around me so I can see what's going on. I don't want it to go to the police.
You cannot reform this, okay? Do you understand that? These people are trigger happy. They're violent. They're racist. Wake up, asshole.
I'm a cop.
Yep. I mean, yep. It's why one of the biggest prisons in Louisiana is still a plantation. Like, anyway. Thoughts, guys?
Yeah, I was going to say, for people who are not aware, a lot of the guys I know particularly that went to my high school, a lot of the guys that end up becoming police officers are guys who peaked in high school. And then it's like after high school, they're like, they want to be like bullies and they want to have some type of power that they no longer have because they don't have that power from when they were in high school. And so they decide to be a cop. So a lot of times it's people who are already assholes who become police officers. And then they become even worse because now they have a gun and they have a badge. And so people have to understand that. Now, it's not all of them, but there are some of them that do that. And they feed off of that power. And I think that's important for people to understand. When I look at the officers that did the chokehold on Eric Garner, one of the police officers in particular, the one, I don't know his name, but the one that looked at the camera, he was such a jerk. That guy in particular, I was like, that guy reminds me of someone who probably peaked in high school and now decided to get a gun and a badge and thinks he's one of the most powerful people. And they are protected. They're very much protected. They're protected by the union. They're protected by the governor. They're protected by the mayors. For people who are not aware, the mayor does have the ability to remove police officers, to remove police chiefs. And so I'll give an example here in Boston. Many people may not know this, but just a couple of years ago, the former police chief of Boston, it was a big to-do here because he was the first Black police chief in Boston. So it was all over the news. He was assigned that position. When it was announced that Marty Walsh was going to go to DC to work for Joe Biden under that position, he announced that he was considering running for mayor of Boston. And then after that announcement, it was revealed that he had also been brought up on domestic abuse allegations from his wife. And nothing was done because he was a police officer. Like sick stories, like to the point where even he was sleeping with the gun under his pillow. Needless to say, he decided not to run for mayor. That was the police chief.
Yep. Well, the one person we didn't get to see in those videos a lot from RBN is Rome. I think we should add some of him in here. I don't know what do you guys think? I think I'm down.
Yeah.
Yay.
Watch
is to fund the police. Fund them.
Let's do this. Pause and click.
The answer
Play.
is not to defund the police.
Watch
is to fund the police. Fund them.
Kamala and Nancy stand up and they're Democrats, and then you got Republicans right here standing up and clapping. One
I know that lady.
Corporate party.
You want to hear this? This is after the cops had run over people.
So we have a group of people blocking traffic on Albany and Dean Street. They're refusing to let the orange go eastbound on Dean Street and Albany. So we're stuck here. Run them over. Shoot those motherfuckers. Don't put that over yet.
Like, what the fuck? Take a quick look at this segment, because there's something he shows here that I don't think a lot of people have been paying attention to.
People are listening. Because citizens have police scanners and they can hear what you really think, dummy. Hey, you fucking depraved animal. People are going to know we're depraved animals now. Don't put that out over the air. Don't put that out over the air. We're depraved animals. You know that, right?
Step on the car. Step on the car.
See how much money they spend on cops? Look at it. It keeps going up and up and up. From Obama. From Obama. Look at all that money.
I'll say it once and I'll say it again. Defund the police on the road to abolishing them.
We see the citizens we're supposed to be serving as the enemy because that's how we're trained. And half of us are hopped up on steroids. We got roid rage. The other half of us are just depraved white supremacists and wife beaters.
Right, nobody's gonna question these people. So they feel like they can go around our community and do whatever the fuck they want to us, bro.
So 2017, Barack Obama, he increased funding by $1.07 billion.
Like, what the fuck?
You know, people don't understand what reduces crime.
Since when? Since when has the police ever stopped crime?
What reduces crime is healthcare, jobs, good economy, good schools. That's what actually reduces crime. More cops just increases our incarcerated population.
We are the most propagandized country. Our country is so propagandized. We literally imprison 1/4 of the world's prison population, but we somehow convince people we are the land of the free. How the hell did they do that?
Like, what the fuck?
2018, Trump increased funding by $1.14 billion.
Like, what the fuck?
The government convinced white people through propaganda that the black people are the criminal, and then white people are fine with all the brutality. They're fine with the police state being funded. They're fine with all of that stuff.
2019 increased funding by $1.17 billion.
If you just complied, if you're not doing anything wrong, you have nothing to worry about. Did you know that stop and frisk, which basically a lot of this was, only led to 1% of the people being stopped and frisked to being arrested? That means 99% of the time, every single person that was stopped and frisked was innocent.
Like, what the fuck?
2020 increased funding by $1.23 billion.
Like, what the fuck? What world are we living in?
The world you created, mouth-breathing fucking maniac. What world are we living in? The world you created. Out-of-control terrorists like you fucking...
That damn blue line is thin for a reason. It can be snapped. With logic, man.
2021 increased funding by $1.32 billion.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, isn't the point of policing public safety? So, do you guys realize that we spend 3 times more on the NYPD than North Korea does on their military budget? and you guys don't feel safe?
And they don't feel safe.
How much money do the police need to have for you to feel safe at home?
And then we go right here to Joe Biden, increased funding, $1.28 billion.
What the fuck?
And the reason why I wanted to show you this is because it goes to show you that at the end of the day, both Democrats and Republicans support the police state.
That's what this is. You won't respect my authority. Treat me with respect.
These motherfuckers are serial killers. They take care of their own. Some of these police officers have more than 5 fucking bodies. 5 bodies on their fucking belt. That's a real killer. What the fuck?
If you're a populist, if you're for the working class people, the police state is our #1 enemy. They steal more resources from us via the civil asset forfeiture than criminals do. Do you guys know that?
People are angry. People are ready to rise up. And I honestly believe that is why they want to give the police more money, because they know what's coming. He wants to make it so that, as much as he likes to tout support for what happened with George Floyd, he wants to make it clear. He's going to be sure that nothing like that will ever happen again.
I love Joe's videos. I can't say that enough. Dude does real good work. So, but also JB getting angry in there. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like when JB gets upset. You know, he goes off when he goes off, and it's great. So,
and can I say something? Because there are certain people in this space that are like, "Oh, why are you so angry?" You know, in reference to us. You know, and it's kind of like, first of all, I'm kind of like, well, why aren't you? The fact that you're not as angry, like I have to kind of question where you're coming from. In a sense, that's kind of a privileged take to say that, you know, especially to Black people, you know, like that you have to be so angry. This is the shit that we have to deal with, like on a daily basis. So it just kind of shows the class and then the race divide in terms of how people view the police. Like if you're far removed from the problem, or if you're white or another race where you don't necessarily have to deal with it, you don't have to think about that. But, you know, as I said, you know, like this is something that we, and especially if you're Black and growing up like in the hood, you have to deal with this every single day. And so on top of other stuff, you know, that we have to deal with just doing living life in America, you know, we have cause to be angry. And this is one of the reasons why. And as I said, it angers me that when people, you know, when we talk about these issues to people, that people just kind of dismiss, oh, you know, it's not a big deal, you know, like George Floyd, that's going to happen like one day, you know, whatever, don't worry about it. But then when it comes to the issues that they care about, then they expect us to be on board to kind of promote their issues. And so I basically say to, you know, our community, because I think our community is pretty much more in the know. So this is just more for anybody else. Like, if you truly are a leftist and you care about Black people, especially the ones that you are concerned about, you know, the issues that we talk about, policing, reparations, economics, listen to us. Because, you know, as, you know, the Democrats say, they depend on our vote, you know? And unfortunately, we are not going to have those issues even brought up, you know, in federal government. But with the right people, and especially if you're non-white, of color, you know, you have a better chance to help us be allies in kind of elevating a lot of these issues. So if you care about us, as you say you do, then you stand up for us when we talk to you about these issues that really have undermined our community in this country for the last 400 years, and you help to elevate those issues. Because if you don't, that just shows us where your heart is at, and you're not really in it to promote, you know, these progressive issues that, especially for Black people, are of concern to us. So,
well, that's, yeah, I was going to say that was one of the same criticisms about the Bernie Sanders movement that some people had, that it seemed like, yes, all of those policies would help working class and poor people, right? So it would help Black people too. But when it came to issues that were specifically about the Black community, Bernie Sanders' campaign was against it.
Yeah.
And that did turn off some Black people, some Black voters. That was a turnoff, you know? So there were some things to me that I felt like was just a no-brainer. You know, it's okay for Bernie Sanders to sign on for legislation to give added reparations to Jewish people in the United States. I have no problem with that. What I have a problem with is when Bernie Sanders says he does not agree with reparations for African Americans in this country. That was a big, that's a problem.
With
That's
the
a problem.
excuse that it will never pass. And I'm like,
But it's not even just that, because I talked to Cornel West about this as well. And I asked him, what was the deal with that? And Cornel West said, yeah, he doesn't agree with that. So it's not just about that it won't pass. I think it's more so about the fact that it's for Black people. You see, the whole thing of this goes back into the Bernie Sanders movement is that Bernie Sanders truly believed that if you just fix the economic issue, then everything else will fall into place. That's true to a certain extent. But the problem that you're still going to run into is that even if you get the money, you fix the economic issue, at the end of the day, if you're Black, you're still Black. You still have to deal with racism. You still have to deal with these systemic racial issues that we have in this country. You have to deal with the education system, which also is inherently racist in this country. It's very segregated. Property taxes pay for public schools. That's a big mistake. That is also aligned with racism as well, because obviously people in the low income neighborhoods, which most of the time are Black neighborhoods, are not going to have these schools that are well resourced and that are well funded. So that is the big piece that is missing. So when people stop talking about a policing issue after George Floyd, you know, I noticed that there were very few commentators that are still covering policing stories. Many of them after George Floyd protests, they talked about that a lot because it was trending, it was global news. But then after that, all these other incidents, they don't even cover. There was no story about Amir Locke. They didn't touch that. How many people talked about Jalen McMillan, the 15-year-old Black boy who was shot in the head with his hands up? They're not covering those stories because it does not pertain to them and their communities. Now, that's not everyone. Some people, like Jimmy, still talks about policing, but some people clearly just like walked away because the thing is, if they're not affected, they don't really want to deal with it. Same thing with reparations. If it's not really for them, they don't really want to talk about it. But we were expected to get on board with the issues that benefit them.
Right.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember, you know, getting into fights with Black people regarding Bernie Sanders back in 2020 for that issue. They didn't trust him. I had prominent, you know, Black, especially one in particular, I forgot her name right now, got into a fight with her. You know, basically she didn't trust Bernie. And now in hindsight, I'm like, I should have listened to you, because there was a lot of, they were right to kind of not trust Bernie. And obviously, you know, like I definitely have grown in that idea now, especially given the lexical work that he has done now since. But, you know, but I think it does stand to talk about the idea of, I think that just helps our case, you know, being Black commentators, that we need to talk about our stories more from our perspective. Yeah. So, you know, shout out to you, Sabby, you know, like for doing the work and kind of leading me in that as well, doing this for not as long as you have. But I think at the same time, as a way to kind of educate people about the reality of what it is to mean living Black, you know, in America, and how there are things that are different for us, even on the left, that people need to understand, and not that simplifies, we don't need your pity, but to take that understanding and do something with it. And as I said before, if you're choosing to ignore like what we're saying to you, then I can't really truly call you an ally. So I think just moving forward, that's something I think we have to be cautious of, but also just as a call to people who, you know, are kind of in our space, listen to us, that we are imploring you to stand for us in these issues. Because as I said, as me as a Black man, you as a Black woman, we're not going to get the kind of traction that if you're non-Black, if you're talking about these issues and there's enough of you, it's going to get attention. So, you know,